This is Singing Señorita. Right now we are in testing season, and if you've ever been in testing season, you know it's an awkward time to be teaching because you're in and out of classes and your schedule's a little weird. So what I want to do today is just share with you different ideas of what to do depending on what your testing season looks like. And if that sounds good to you, stick around. So the first set of ideas that I have for you are ideas that you could use if you want to have something available in the classroom that they're testing that has nothing to do with what they're testing about. It's just a safe and clean coloring activity. Or if, like we used to do, your kids are testing in the morning and then they come to you in the afternoon and they're tired. So you don't want to introduce a lot of new material, something relaxing to do. So what I've just put together in that case is a set of coloring sheets, but they're cultural coloring sheets. So this one is done in the style of Mexican folk art. And then I have two that are in the Mola style from the Cuna Indians in Panama. And then I also have two that I've made for Semana Santa. Usually our testing season falls about the same time as Easter. So these would be appropriate for your class if you wanted them to have something to color afterwards, or if they're coming to you after a long day of testing. Other things, I've made these incredibly detailed verb ending color sheets. So you have AR verbs, there's an IR verbs, and there's a right setup ER verbs that I put together in a bundle that will keep the students occupied because they are highly detailed. So if that's the route that you would like to go, those are some great things to do during testing. Also, if you do want to do a little bit of maybe verb conjugation, I've got a plethora of color by conjugation. I have the seasonal ones. Again, we're in the Easter season, so you could pick out one of the color by conjugation eggs. Let me speak English correctly. Or since Cinco de Mayo is coming up, depending on where your testing season falls, you could do either one of them if you want them to do a little bit of grammar, but nothing heavy. Also, what I love to do is add in some fun projects. So we're in the testing season, so I just had my Spanish 3. They were working on making some big heads. Well, that's what I call them. It's a tracing pack where they can make their own characters. So they can spend the time during that testing days, whatever your district does. They can be drawing the picture, and then when you come back to regular class, then you can begin to have them write about their characters in Spanish. Depending on what level you're at, will depend on what level of writing that they do with them. So that's my first set of ideas. My second set of ideas for testing have to do with block scheduling. So the way that we used to do it, we used to have block scheduling there were almost 2 weeks where our classes were interrupted with testing. So students would go and test in their core subjects for 2-hour blocks, and then the kids that weren't testing would be in your class for a 2-hour block. And in the districts that I was in, you weren't able to introduce new material. So you almost had to find ways, those would be great ways to introduce culture. So what we called them World Language Culture Week. So we would have a list of projects that the students worked on in class during those times, and that would be like a concentrated week of culture, because a lot of times introducing culture is the harder part because there's so much grammar and vocabulary. So we just crammed it all into those testing weeks. So what I've made, and I'll be sharing with you for free, I'll have a link for you to grab all of these ideas, is a cultural projects sheet that describes each of the cultural projects that we used to do. So I'm just sharing what my district shared with me, I'm sharing with you. Each one that you see underlined is actually a link to a YouTube video that either you or your students, so if you provide this sheet for your students as a PDF, they can click the link and actually watch the video to learn how to make it, or you could just show it on a screen, but it's available for you. So one of the first projects, now unfortunately when I changed districts, I actually lost some of my most beautiful student work. I left it in the district I was at, and I am so sad because I thought I had it. But I found a few things that my students have made over the years. They're not exactly the full project, but at least I had some kind of example. So one is a movie poster. So for the first three, I tell students that they can just go to the dollar store and buy this size poster. I like mine uniform because I actually use these projects to decorate my classroom, because who doesn't love free decor for your room? So one is a movie poster. So students would have to choose a movie. It would have to be one in Spanish. Mine usually chose Disney movies that were translated in Spanish. So this is like one of them that they were designing. So those minions. But usually I have them choose something that has a subtitle in Spanish and a little bit of information, but they reproduce a movie poster that you can hang in your class. And I had some beautiful ones that I used to decorate my room with. Another is a travel poster. I do not have an example of that, but there is a link here to a few examples from different countries. So it's a poster that students make to try to attract other people to go to that country. Also there, I call copy the masters. So on the same size poster board, they find a famous piece of artwork from a Latin American or a Spanish speaking artist, and they reproduce that work of art the best that they can. I have a beautiful one hanging in my classroom that I forgot to bring home with me, but what I'll try to do is take a picture of it and put it in this video as I'm editing it. So those are the first three that involve the poster board. Then the next one is to make a piñata. So they have a very simple tutorial that I connected here where they use a balloon and they make a piñata. What I typically like to do is at the end of the year, especially if we have a Cinco de Mayo party, is to use that piñata. We actually stuff it with candy, we take it outside, and we beat the snot out of it. So the next one is a children's book. Now I had the cutest little children's book, but all you have is my little example that I make. So what it is they do very simple sentences. So the student that I used to have the one for made Old McDonald's farm, but they made a very simple Spanish version of it. So they would write a sentence that he had a farm, and then they would use these cute little stickers, and they would write their next sentence, Señor McDonald tiene un caballo, and then they would put their sticker of the horse. So it was a cute project. Some students figured out how to bind it, others just poked holes in it and used yarn. A similar idea to that is to make an alphabet book. Now this one is great because a lot of students chose this one because it's an easier thing to figure out. But they would find a Spanish word for each letter of the alphabet. They would draw a picture and write a simple sentence. A es para abeja. A is for apples, pretty much. So whatever the word letter is, the Spanish word begins with that. They draw a picture and they make a little book out of it with every letter of the alphabet. So another project would be a country-shaped collage. That again would be used with this size poster board. So they would cut out the outline of the country, and then they would find pictures in color. Now I told my students if they weren't able to print in color, then what they could do is do the black and white and color it in, because some students don't have color printers. But it would be things like famous sites from that country, a picture of the capital, the flag, what the money looked like, maybe if there's a traditional clothing from that country, exports of that country, what the country is famous for, just anything to do with that country, they would put it in the collage. And I had so many beautiful ones of those that again, I left at the other school. Another is a paper flower arrangement. So I've linked a video to this very simple flower. So what my students would have to do is make 6 paper flowers and put them in a vase. They could use the tutorial, which is the simplest form that makes this type of flower, but some of my students would go all out and make the most beautiful set of flowers for my classroom. And I kept them year after year, and I would use them to decorate for our Cinco de Mayo party that we have at the end of it every year, pretty much. So the next is making a mola. So one of the coloring sheets I mentioned is like my version of a mola. This is one that I had hanging on the wall. So they have lots of examples, but the student would come up with their own design, and they would draw the very intricate detail if they wanted full credit, and then they would also have to color it. I left a link on the sheet to one where they actually cut out construction paper for the different layers, so it feels more like what a mola would really be like, layers and layers of fabric. I've even had students make them out of fabric in the traditional stitching each one of the layers of fabric. So I had so many of those. And then the last idea on the page would be to make an ojo de Dios, a God's eye. So students would bring, now this is a miniature example that I'm still working on for my students, but what we would have them do, because these are big projects that are going to last them, we would have them do them on 3 feet dowels, so the God's eyes would be very, very large. And again, I would keep them for decorations, but this is the idea behind it. I placed a link on the free paper where it shows how to make these. Now, it's making them out of popsicle sticks just like I did, but you just apply that to the dowels. Same idea, same method. So those are different ideas of projects you can do if you end up on that block scheduling, or these could actually be used for end of year projects, in that if you finish your curriculum and the things that you have to finish, you could throw in one of these projects, because these have been some of the most popular things that I have done in my class. So I hope that helps you a little bit with some ideas of what to do during testing, especially in this season we're at. It would be a great idea. Your students would love it. It's a change of pace. It's relaxing, and it does let them get a hands-on feel for some of the things in the culture. So I hope those ideas have helped you. I hope you have an amazing week. Happy teaching. Adios.